and welcome to the chat on Newsday Amarillo and News Channel 10-2. I'm David Lovejoy.
And I'm the cattleman's choice, Chuckalicious Chuck Williams.
And a familiar face joins us here. Our man Bryce Hudson is visiting us today. Yesterday kicked off a very, very big, important day across the Panhandle. We hear this fact a lot. We feed America. If you're eating a piece of steak, 9 times out of 10, they cross through this area. And they're having their big cattle conference up in Hempfield County. Andy Holloway and the gang up there with Texas A&M Ag and a lot of other folks have put this together. Our man Bryson went down and covered it for KGNC. Bryce, how was this year's show? Kickoff of it.
Yeah, well, good morning, y'all. Of course, it was an amazing turnout. This is the 9th year for the Beef Cattle Conference up there in Hemphill County. Started right when Andy Holloway got the position there in Canadian, and it only started out with about 60 people. And now, I mean, we're pushing close to 250 plus. It was a record number this year. A lot of great vendors, a lot of great speakers, huge people in the agricultural industry, professors from Tech, Clarendon, as well as WT, major driving force. And this year's theme was, it's all about the numbers. You know, David, you talked about, we feed a lot of the people around this world with cattle. And it's important that we really dive into those numbers, whether it's the economic numbers or we're looking at the numbers of choosing cattle, whether it's bulls or looking at some nice heifers to get the program started. It's all about the numbers. So major things when we talked about, looking at the economy, kind of getting prepared for the future, and a little event, in a small town of Canadian, but a major driving force and informing, producers, whether they're farmers or ranchers, about this is what's going on in the world of agriculture and especially what's going on in the beef cattle industry.
Well, one subject, this is something dear to your heart. The kids from the meat processing facility, the ag class up in Canyon WT went down, and their main mission was to show what type of education they get when it comes to agriculture at WT, and how did they comport themselves? How do you, not only, I know it's a little biased because you're a part of the program, but how does that WT Ag program stack up against those across the nation?
I always tell people, we may be a smaller, Division II school as a whole, but we are one major driving force when it comes to the ag college itself. The one thing that sets WT apart is no matter how many students we have over 1,000 students in the ag department. Each one of them is still cared for by their professors. You're more than welcome to go visit them. They'll take you on trips to actually go out into the field. That's what sets WT apart, is getting these kids hands-on experience into the world, whether it's veterinary science, doing necropsies out there with Dr. Posey,
Right.
or being with my professor, Dr. Robertson, going out and helping businesses with ag communications and marketing, and especially even the meat science department, heading out there today to fab out, a forequarter and a hindquarter, and kind of show exactly. These students are going up there with Dr. Ty Lawrence and showing the breakdown of a carcass. And this is how they do it on a daily basis at a meats lab. And this is the same way they would do it at a plant. But they're getting that experience right within our doors, getting the actual real world experience before sending them out into that real world.
Me being part of the food chain, I guess I eat beef too, so I'm the pavement side of the pasture. What, if anything, what new meat cuts are y'all trying to discover this year? I mean, we have skirt steaks, which I didn't know about till last month. It seems like we're generating everything but the moo these days. What about it?
Well, of course. Well, a huge thing that's been happening is the Certified Angus Beef Association and a lot of the breed associations want to make things called innovative cuts. Cuts that weren't,
Right.
a big thing. Rather, they're just going to be ground up for ground beef, or they're just going to be used for cube steaks, whatever it may be. Now we've changed
Right.
things like a flat iron steak, right in the heart of the chuck. This used to be something that we used to not even cook as a steak. But now we're using it. It's one of the second most tender steaks, right behind, using a filet mignon or a tenderloin. So now we're starting to change
Oh,
things. Texas is kind of funky too. A brisket is not really supposed to be smoked, but here in
Mm-mm.
Texas, we used it and we started smoking it. But up north, people still use it for stews and that
Mhm.
aspect. We're
right.
starting to innovate things and use things differently for different aspects. Whether it's big roast, we're starting to see, well, maybe we can use it for this, and kind of diving into, instead of keeping it the plain Jane way that we've always done it, we're starting to change the world of innovation cuts, starting to use things besides just using it for ground beef.
Bryce, there's no way to sugarcoat this. It's been a tough couple of years for agriculture, whether you're growing corn, cotton, wheat, raising cattle, uh, dairy, whatever it is. It has been tough. Drought has kind of put pressure on us. Uh, Economic conditions, shortfalls in the supply chain have put pressure on the farmer and the rancher, and cost, just cost of doing business, trucking,
Mhm.
everything, fuel has skyrocketed. Where are we sitting in the beef market? I know we had a little downturn a couple of years ago when that processing plant in Kansas burned down. It signaled a downturn in beef. Do you see an uptick? Do you see us getting back to the herd numbers and the quantity we did pre-COVID?
Yeah, so yesterday we got the opportunity to talk to Dr. Troy Applehans, who is a data analysis for Cattle Facts, a great information source for kind of futuring out where we're looking at when it comes to the stocks and kind of seeing where numbers and cattle lie. And he gave us a good little speech yesterday about, we're going to get back there. We're getting on that uptick. We're starting to get the prices right, but we're not in the stage yet to start expanding. We need to just solely focus on making sure we're building the quality, building our herds out slowly, but it is nowhere near the time yet to start buying cattle, start getting off and diving into that yet,
Hmm.
because we're still in a cycle. The cycle lasts for about 10 to 12 years of, we
Mm.
start losing the herds, we start gaining the herds, where the prices kind of start dipping, and it's a big change. And of course, you can find all that, speech and stuff on YouTube at Hemp Hill County 2023. And he really dives into how we need to make sure we're just kind of solely focusing on this right now, making sure we keep the herd, don't expand it just yet, but we're getting there to that expansion stage, just not yet.
Have you guys thought about, well, has there been any talk about foreign influence on buying up the cattle herds and the cattle farms? Are we stressing that, or are we stressing more domestic influence?
Well, we're going to be stressing a lot more domestic, influence to start selling cattle. But, another thing, we talked with Ag Resources yesterday of, we've kind of hit the maximum capacity here in the US to find any
Right.
tillable land for farmland or even ranch land. And the European Union, sorry, has reached like maximum like years ago. They're landlocked too. So we're kind of starting to become like Europe, and we're starting to kind of get a little landlocked. So now we're going to have to kind of focus on some other countries. And of course, we're going to look at South America and Brazil. Brazil is the number
Right.
one beef seller in the entire world, and we're number two, solely due to JBS Global, is based out of Brazil. So we're going to try to focus domestically, but we're running out of land really quickly to keep doing it.
All right. Bryce Hudson attended the cattle conference. It continues today. Always a great job, and we'll have some great interviews coming up with Pasture to Pavement. We're going to get out of here, call it a day. You know the two rules: be kind, be careful. We'll see you bright and early tomorrow morning, right here on the chat.